Hi, and welcome to this month's VideoTech. In this issue, we'll take a look at what's new for 1990 about using the DRBII on Jeep and Eagle vehicles. First, we'll use an Eagle Talon to demonstrate how to perform a visual inspection, which is the first step in any diagnostic procedure. And then, to demonstrate the 1990 Jeep Eagle DRBII cartridge, we'll use an Eagle Summit. The Talon and the Summit are featured in this release because many of the changes in the 1990 DRBII cartridge affect these vehicles. The format used to test Jeep and Eagle Premier vehicles in 1990 is nearly the same as 1989. The equipment hasn't changed. In 1990, you use the same DRBII and the same Jeep Eagle adapter for Jeep vehicles and the Eagle Premier and Medallion. The same MMC adapter is used on the Eagle Summit and the new Eagle Talon. The DRBII, more than ever, is a powerful diagnostic tool used to help diagnose no-start and drivability problems. Special screens called state displays, or sensor readouts, are especially useful functions for diagnosing drivability concerns that don't result in a fault code. Each 1990 Diagnostic Procedures Manual contains a DRBII roadmap, which shows you how to move through the menus for the vehicles and systems covered in each book. And the introduction in each Diagnostic Procedures Manual explains how to connect the DRBII and the appropriate adapter, and illustrates the location of the diagnostic connector for the vehicle and system that you're working on. The introduction also explains the key functions and how to use the DRBII voltometer. Technicians who aren't very familiar with using the DRBII may wish to look at the January 1989 VideoTech release using the DRBII and the Jeep Eagle adapter. The DRBII is very useful, but remember, it's a problem-solving device, not the answer to all drivability problems. Remember the basics. Always begin diagnostic procedures with a visual inspection of the vehicle's components. Now, you may be wondering why we place such special emphasis on the visual inspection. The visual inspection is very important because there are some things the ECU can't determine to be in good working order. At the beginning of each Diagnostic Procedures Manual is a list of critical items to check which might be causing problems. When you perform your visual inspection, you're checking the condition of various sensors, switches, and relays. Connectors and terminals must lock together. Take the coolant temperature sensor, for example. Make sure the sensor connector is secure and the harness is in good condition. The same idea applies to the idle switch and the rest of the multi-point injection components. Don't forget to check the engine mechanical items as well, because these items can also cause no-start and drivability problems. The ECU can't detect fuel pressure. High or low fuel pressure can be caused by a clogged fuel filter, bad fuel pressure regulator, pinched return line, or a fuel pump problem. Secondary ignition is not monitored. Problems could be fouled or worn out spark plugs, cross-firing, or open spark plug wires. The ECU won't know if cam timing is retarded or advanced, if cylinder compression is too low or high, or if compression is uneven. An EGR valve seat could be leaking, or the exhaust system could have a plug converter or leaky exhaust. There could be mechanical injector problems, like a clogged orifice or a sticking pintle, or the wrong injector installed. A turbo-mechanical problem, like a wastegate stuck open, or a turbine not turning, won't be detected. A solenoid with its pintle stuck won't be detected, nor will a fault in the brake switch, park neutral switch, or AC switch. The ECU won't detect a purge canister loaded with liquid fuel, or vacuum hose actuated circuits that aren't functioning properly due to loss of or trapped vacuum. On vehicles which are equipped with an airflow sensor, like the Talon, intake hoses and air cleaner housings must be in place and secure for testing and normal operation. The ECU won't detect poor grounds or no grounds to the ECU, or if the ECU pin terminals are spread apart, crushed, or pushed out. The items discussed can cause either a no-start or a drivability problem, and there will be no fault messages displayed on the DRBII. In this situation, you need to determine the items that relate to the symptoms affecting the vehicle that you're working on and check them first. During your visual inspection, check for customer-installed accessories, such as ignition kill switches and alarms. Also check the battery. Make sure the battery is fully charged and the connectors have good contact with the terminals. There's one item inside the vehicle that's also important to check. Examine the fuse block. On all Talon models, it's located by the driver's side kick panel. Look for the condition and proper application of fuses and circuit breakers. Well, now that we've completed our visual inspection, let's take a look at what the ECU can tell you through the DRBII. Hooking up the DRBII to the Talon is easy. The diagnostic connector is in the same location for all Talon models, next to the fuse block. You begin by connecting the 12-way connector from the MMC adapter to the diagnostic connector. Then connect the adapter to the DRBII. Make sure the 8-way connectors are pushed tightly together. Next, hook up the adapter's power cable to the battery. It's the black cable with the red alligator clip. Just attach it to the positive terminal. And you're ready to insert the 1990 Jeep Eagle cartridge, label side up. Well, that concludes our demonstration of the visual inspection of the Talon. Now, using a 1990 Eagle Summit, let's take a look at what's really new about using the DRBII with Jeep and Eagle vehicles. In 1989, there were separate cartridges, one for Jeeps, Eagle Premier and Medallion, and one for the Eagle Summit and Talon. But for 1990, there's one cartridge for all Jeep Eagle vehicles. This one cartridge replaces all of your 1989 cartridges. Jeep, Premier, and Medallion technicians should be familiar with the 1990 cartridge format. Now, technicians who are used to working on the Eagle Summit and Talon will find the format offers a wider variety of functions and displays. In addition to more functions and displays, technicians have full use of the keyboard with the 1990 Jeep Eagle cartridge. You can use yes, no, F1 and F2 keys to scroll through menus. All right, now I'm going to insert the 1990 DRBII cartridge and examine the keyboard before exploring the menus and functions. After the self-test and the Chrysler copyright message, the DRBII menu will be displayed. During this process, the DRBII reminds you that the F3 key is used to display a help screen. The ATM key will return you to the previous display. Pressing ATM and mode keys at the same time will reset the DRBII back to the copyright screen. The number keys are used to select a display or test. For example, to find which vehicles you can test with the 1990 cartridge, select Vehicles Tested by pressing the 1 key. The Enter key also allows you to select a display or test. Remember, the flashing arrows must be on the display that you wish to select. For example, to choose Select Vehicle, you'd scroll down to your choice and then press Enter. Also, pressing the Enter key in the sensor state display will cause the display to go from a 3-line display to a 1-line display. And the Read-Hold key can be pressed to freeze any sensor display. Now let's take a look at the DRBII menu. Now this routine will be familiar to Jeep and Eagle Premier technicians with one small change. There are 4 choices in the menu compared to only 3 in 1989. The Configure choice is new. When you select Configure DRBII System, you can select the DRBII to give standard or metric units and decimal or hex units. Moving down the menu a little further, you can see that key click will turn the beeper and the red and green LED lights on or off. You can also choose none for no lights or beeper. Now, note that the Configure Fuel System and the remote display functions are not used. Pressing the ATM key to return to the DRBII menu Let's take a look at the Select Vehicle display. Jeep Premier and Medallion technicians will see choices according to vehicle and engine, while the Summit and Talon technicians will be asked to select an engine. After you've made your selection, you select the equipment that applies to the vehicle and then confirm your choices. For example, this Summit is equipped with the 1.6-liter engine, non-turbo, federal emissions, air conditioning, and electronic automatic transaxle. The DRBII will show your selections. Now, it's very important to make sure you've entered the correct information, or your test may be incorrect. So, once you're satisfied with your selections, either scroll down to confirm, hit the yes key, or press the corresponding number. Confirming your selections will take you to the main menu. The main menu offers 5 choices for all vehicles. The 5 choices are system tests, read faults, state displays, actuator tests, and adjustments. For the 1990 model year, system tests are only available on Jeep and Eagle Premier vehicles. And even though actuator tests appear in the menu, this year they're only available on the Talon and Summit. System tests on Jeep and Eagle Premier vehicles remains the same as those available in 1989. This option allows you to perform tests on the engine, the automatic transmission, the anti-lock brake system, and on the Eagle Premier, the motorized seatbelt system. The read faults display is new for 1990. On Jeep vehicles, it's intended only for testing the anti-lock brake system. Meanwhile, on the Eagle Summit and the Talon, the read faults menu has 2 options. One is engine faults, and the other is electronic automatic transaxle faults. When no faults are present, the DRBII will display no faults detected. A complete list of the fault codes available is in the functional flow diagram, or roadmap, in the beginning of every 1990 Diagnostic Procedures Manual. Here's an example using the read faults display in the DRBII main menu. Oftentimes you'll be looking for intermittent faults, such as when you're testing the barometric pressure sensor using test DR11. Using the read faults display will help determine whether the fault is intermittent or constant. Now, I've already removed the room fuse because during this particular procedure, you remove the room fuse to clear the ECU of fault codes. Then you want to select the DRBII read faults display. Once you've selected the read faults display, you're asked to start the engine. Let the engine idle for 1 minute and watch the DRBII display. Fault code 25 appears. Fault code 25 corresponds to the barometric pressure sensor circuit. So this answers the question in the flow chart. Fault code 25 appears, and test DR11 instructs you to continue the test on the next page. The next selection in the main menu is the state displays option. State displays are simply sensor readings displayed on the DRBII screen. Many Jeep Eagle technicians are already familiar with using state displays. However, Summit and Talon technicians will find this new. State displays can be used during various diagnostic procedures to help pinpoint intermittent problems. The menu offers a choice of 6 types of state displays: module information, sensors, inputs/outputs, custom display, min, current, max, and monitors. Module information tells you which ECU the vehicle has. Moving to sensors, Jeep and Eagle Premier displays function as they did in 1989, and they're similar to the sensor tests in the 1989 MMC cartridges. Sensor displays are used frequently to check for intermittent faults. In this sample procedure, the DRBII is displaying fault code 12, which corresponds to the airflow sensor. To find out if the problem is either intermittent or constant, remove the room fuse to erase the fault, and then retest. Now, as you wiggle the 6-way connector at the airflow sensor, watch the DRBII screen for changes in the display. In this example, the display changed, and the test instructs you to repair the wire or wire ends for poor contact at the airflow sensor, and then retest. For the Summit and Talon, there's a display called Inputs Outputs. Selecting this option allows you to test switches like park neutral, power steering, idle switch, air conditioning switch, and the crank signal. Here's where the idle switch is located on the 1.6-liter engine. Now, using the DRBII, you can use the Inputs-Outputs display to check the idle switch. This is the idle switch display. The custom display screens are available for all vehicles. You can design 2 screens of 4 sensors or switches. And once you have your screen set up, they'll stay that way until you want to change which inputs and outputs you monitor. All right. Once you're in the custom display menu, you can either view or change the display. To change your display, select which line you want to change. And then select either Sensors, Inputs Outputs, or Min Current Max. The next item in the engine state menu is the Min Current Max display. Min Current Max is new for Summit and Talon vehicles for 1990. This display allows you to view up to 6 different engine sensor signals over time, and is usually used to find intermittent faults during either a wiggle test or a road test. For example, this screen shows the airflow sensor, throttle position sensor, and oxygen sensor readings. The first value displayed is the minimum reading. The second value is the current reading, and the third value is the maximum reading. The sensor readings are displayed as a number ranging from 0 to 255, not in units of measurement such as degrees or hertz. When using the Min Current Max display, it's important to look for sudden changes in the minimum and maximum values. Sudden changes usually indicate intermittent faults. The sensors that can be monitored using the Min Current Max display are the map sensor, the oxygen sensor, TPS, the coolant temperature sensor, and the manifold air temperature sensor. The monitors display shows sensor readings grouped by system. All Jeep Eagle systems offer 4 sets of choices: fuel control, advance, RPM, and AC relay. Jeep systems also offer a no-start screen. Think of the monitor displays as preset custom displays, which are set up for a particular system you wish to monitor. For example, the advanced screen shows these 8 sensor readings: idle switch and TPS, park neutral switch, airflow sensor, spark advance and RPM, which would be the crank angle sensor and top dead center sensor, and the coolant temperature sensor. Note that the monitors, custom displays, and Min Current Max screens are extra tools to aid those of you who might work frequently on specific systems or problems. Well, that completes the demonstration. Moving on to actuator tests. Note that these displays are only available for the Summit and Talon in 1990. Now, you might recall that actuator tests allow you to test individual circuit components by telling the ECU to turn the components on and off at 6-second intervals. You can use the information from these functions while working through the diagnostic test procedure flowcharts. All right, now let's take a look at how you might use the fuel pump test and the injector actuator test to help diagnose problems. Suppose you have a no-start condition, and you're following along the flowchart test, and you find that you have spark and the plugs are dry. The procedure in the manual instructs you to perform the fuel pump actuator test. This test is performed with the engine off. Once you've selected the fuel pump test, listen for the pump to operate. The DRBII instructs the ECU to activate the fuel pump on and off in 6-second cycles. The results of the test will help guide you through the diagnostic procedures to help pinpoint the problem. In this case, the fuel pump is working, and you'll have to continue using the diagnostic procedures to complete the diagnosis. All of the actuator tests, except the injector test, are performed with the engine off. Let's see how the injector test works. Once you've selected the injector test, the DRBII will prompt you to start the engine. On all Summit and Talon vehicles, you can deactivate injectors individually. This test is performed best when the engine is warm. A change in RPM won't be as noticeable at high idle. Simply select the injector you wish to test, then listen for the RPM to change. If it drops, the injector's working. If there's no change, the injector might not be working. When checking out a dead cylinder, keep in mind that other engine mechanical causes, besides the injector, can cause the RPM to remain the same. The last selection in the main menu is Adjustments. On Jeep systems, you can adjust the throttle position sensor using the DRBII. Meanwhile, on the Summit, fault codes can be erased by using the DRBII without removing the room fuse or disconnecting the battery. The DRBII will lead you through the procedure, and the procedure is simple. Once you have the right screen, it involves merely turning the key off and then on. Once the fault codes are erased, the display gives this message. To erase fault codes on the Eagle Talon, preferably pull the room fuse in the fuse panel. Disconnecting the battery will erase the fault codes and all your customer's radio and clock settings, which must be reset. Well, this concludes the VideoTec session about the 1990 DRBII update. The DRBII, used with the 1990 diagnostic procedure manuals, are powerful diagnostic tools. Even so, keep in mind the basics, and always remember to perform a visual inspection first before you begin testing systems. That way you get the job done right and save yourself and your customers valuable time. And look for next month's VideoTec release on the Eagle Premier Monaco heating and air conditioning system. See you then.